Hi, welcome to Season 2 of the Let's K-12 Better podcast. This podcast is a project between Mama Well Capes and her kids.
Hi!
In our podcast, we will cover a variety of subjects involving K-12 education and family life.
We will talk about the ways that parents, kids, and educators can improve K-12 education and family life. We encourage you to join our conversation on social media using the hashtag Let's K-12 Better.
All right. We are so excited. What? Yes. Okay. Well, thank each and every one of you guys out there for joining us. This is a Black History Month celebration. So we are just elated to have y'all here. We hope that you bring your knowledge of what you've learned this month to our discussion. We've got a lot jam-packed in this hour. We hope that you guys also share your knowledge with us. Tag a friend and tell them to come on and join us during this hour that we have together to close out Black History Month. What?
Yeah.
So we are starting right now just to kind of, we'll start off with this month. We had two podcast episodes. We had an episode on Black History Month, and then we also had an episode on blackface, right? Which some people thought was pretty shocking for kids to talk about. So let's just talk really briefly about those two episodes. What are some things that you learned about, shout out to Libby. Yeah.
Shout out!
Thanks for joining us, Libby and Jack. And then also, if you guys are here watching, please drop in the comments and let us know that you're here so that we can give you shout outs and love throughout the show. All right. So we're going to jump into first, like the two episodes that we had. We had one about Black History Month and then one about blackface. And again, a lot of people were like, why are you talking about blackface with kids? So let's hear what they had to say about these two episodes. You can go first.
I have something to say about the blackface episode specifically. It's not that kids are too young. It's that we think kids are too young to talk about these things. So we think like, oh, these kids, they shouldn't talk about this. They're too young. But really, it's easier to just expose kids to something so that they can learn from the mistakes of someone or from like previous mistakes and like kind of grow from that than to have them have to learn on their own as an adult. And I feel like that episode was a great example.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. And I just want to shout out Carol Lee. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. So Naima, you're absolutely right. Like talking about these kinds of topics with kids, whether it's talking about blackface or talking about other challenging, historically challenging subjects, you can have these conversations with your kids. It's important to have these conversations with the children in your life. All right. What did you want to say about these two episodes?
So I think that it's really good to talk about this because like it's good to know it like around like hearing other kids' opinions, not just what adults think.
Oh, so student voice. So she's lifting up student voice. Shout out to Jen. Thank you so much for joining us, Jen, this evening. So Sophia's talking about student voice, right? And again, we are strong proponents of student voice, like lifting up what students think about their learning experiences, what students think about the material that they're learning in school is super important. So thank you, Sophia, for sharing that. What do you want to say?
Also like Naima, like we also like hide things from kids because we think they can't handle it, but like we only think they can't handle it because we're teaching them that they can't handle it. So yeah.
So again, more on student voice, just making sure, empowering our kids to have the courage to have challenging conversations. I think sometimes for adults, we get like really like worked up, like, oh my God, I can't do this. But your kid is actually probably pretty mature and can bring some really amazing insights to a discussion. So we encourage everyone here to listen to, especially listen to the Let's Talk About Blackface episode. And actually, let me add this right now. So let me click on that really quickly for you guys so that you can find it. You can find it on our podcast site, right? And then when you're there, you can scroll down. So we have the Let's Talk About Blackface and then the Let's Talk About Black History Month. So if you haven't listened to those two episodes just yet, please check them out. And then also know that these episodes are available anywhere that you guys listen to podcasts as well. Spotify,
Like
Apple.
Spotify.
Oh my God, everywhere.
Heart Radio.
Spotify is your favorite. All right.
Music.
Awesome. So thank you so much. So then let's just jump right into our episode today, right? So we are closing out Black History Month. We want to say that we created a toolkit. And it has received so much love, right? And I just want to give a shout out to these guys and a shout out to my sister, Alexandria, for helping with this immense effort of putting this toolkit together. We're going to walk through this toolkit just a little bit during the show, but I also want to know, if you guys out there have learned anything about Black History Month or had any, revelations or epiphanies, to please drop them in the chat and share them with us as we go throughout this episode today. The reason we put together this toolkit was because we thought, people want to celebrate Black History Month, but they might not know how. They might not know what reputable resources are out there.
They might not know how to do it, and they not think that they're racist.
Yeah, right. Some people might feel, oh my God, if I do it this way, I might come off as racist or insensitive.
They might think that they're not racist, so they might think they don't need it.
That part too, right? Where we think, okay, we got this. I'm woke or whatever, and like I don't have to do anything as far as continuing my learning journey. I love that. Thank you both for bringing those two things into this space. So we really made this toolkit as a map to kind of get people started on their journey. The reason that we originally decided to do this in the first place, I wrote a piece for the Today Show parent community a couple years ago, 5 ways to celebrate Black History Month for all families. Please check that out. If you go to momofallcapes.com, you can find the toolkits on the toolkit tab. You just click Black History Month toolkit. Now, what we want to make sure is, do we want people to use this just for Black History Month?
No.
No.
You can use it
Year
forever and ever and ever.
Thanksgiving, Christmas, Halloween.
Yes. Any time of year, please come back to this toolkit to find these resources, right? And so, we give like just a brief opener about, Black History Month. It was started by Carter G. Woodson and Jesse E. Moreland as a way to kind of research and celebrate the accomplishments in the early 20th century during a time when Black people were beginning to say, you know what, like we think it's okay to be Black and to be proud of ourselves. And let's continue to like work on pulling our history and our stories together. And then out of that, now we have Black History Month, and here we are today. So super awesome that we are grounded in the past, and then now we're moving forward. In the toolkit, right, we have books, right? So let's books, movies, songs, all kinds of stuff. So it's all there. So let's talk about some of the books that we have read during this month. So we have tons of books and lots of book recommendations. And if you've read a book, all right, or if you have a book recommendation that you think is amazing that you would love to share with our community, please drop that in the chat. We would love to know what kind of books that you have been reading either during Black History Month or up to this point. Please share that with us. So does anyone want to share a book?
Yes. So one of the books that I read was A Black Woman's History of the United States.
All right, tell about the book.
So like
in the mic.
So like what I liked about the book was it said like a bunch of like people who like did cool stuff and amazing stuff, and like it really lifted up those people, and like they're like Black women. So then it like introduced feminism and like diversity to like a good
place and like something that you can do. So
That,
yeah, I like that.
that's really awesome. I really appreciate you for bringing that in here. Who else has a really? What's up, Dr. Markenya? Thank you so much for joining us. What we're just talking about books. If you have a book that you've read, all of you guys who are watching, please share whatever you've read this month or books about Black people or by Black people that you think people should read. We want to expand our library. All right, who wants to go next?
Me. Okay, so I have two books I would like to recommend. The first one is The Spirit of Intimacy by Simone Fusome. It's about Black love and like the different practices of like weddings and like different things that they would do like when in love or like when they were dating, and I thought it was really cool. And it was like really interesting. And then the second book was Stamped by Jason Reynolds and Ibram X Kennedy. It's about the different events that have happened throughout time, from like times like beyond slavery, because we mostly when we think of like Black movements, we think of things like MLK and like
Malcolm
slavery,
X.
but it's way more than that, and that book really highlights that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I have one more book suggestion. Ghost Boy is a really good one, and it like introduced police brutality, and I think that you should read it, and it's like really interesting to read.
Awesome. What about you?
Okay, so I have two books. So the first one is called The Hate You Give. And like I actually really like this book, and like it's really big, but and it took a long time to read, but I think it was worth it because like it also helps introduce police brutality, and it's just kind of like realistic fiction story, or maybe it's realistic, but I don't know. It's just really good book. And yeah, and then the other book I have to recommend is, oh, like I don't know what that
What's this
one's
one?
called. Yeah. It's called Golden Legacy, and it's illustrated Black history stories like Crispus Attucks, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, like those kind of people. And like I don't know, but I just think it's really cool how they turned their stories into comic books, so it's kind of easier for people to just like
See their
read.
years.
Yeah. Well, we have some really great suggestions here. I'll share mine after I share comments from the audience. So thank you so much, Jen, for sharing. You said you really appreciated Frederick Joseph's The Black Friend. Definitely, we're going to add that to our list of books that we need to read. Dr. Markenya, thank you so much for sharing Little Leaders of Tomorrow by Vashti Harrison. I heard that one is a great one as well. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to share, let's see here, some books for some early readers. Can you guys hand me that there's like a couple down there.
Just like
Awesome. So here's a book that you should definitely check out. We have Ashanti to Zulu. All right. So it's African tribes and African traditions. It's like A to Z, and it's hard to see here. So at the end of the show, we will, put some pictures together for you guys so that you can see. In fact, Garvey, you can start taking photos because Garvey's running Twitter tonight on Let's K-12 Better. We also have Why Mosquitoes Buzz in People's Ears. So these are books that this is a book I grew up reading, was in my closet or in my reading as a child. So I think definitely check that one out. We also have Bringing the Rain to Kapiti Plain. This one I fell in love with when I was a young child watching Reading Rainbow. This is a really great book for young readers, bedtime stories. So love that one. And then we had Honey I Love by Eloise Greenfield. That is my favorite book of all time for young readers. Honey I Love. There it is. Woo-ha! So Honey I Love by Eloise Greenfield. It's an amazing book. It really captures the Black vernacular and just the rhythm of just Black poetry and Black dialect. So I love that book. So I just want to thank you guys so much in the chat for sharing. So we're going to share some more from our chat. So shout out to Libby and Jack, currently reading Cast. Highly recommend. That is another book We have cast here as well. So that is on our to-do list. All right. So we will be reading this one as a family and having a conversation. So thank you so much, Libby, for lifting that one up. We also want to shout out to Grayson. Yes, thank you for joining us. So big black brother. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Grayson, for sharing that. Let's see here. The ABCs. Yes, to Honey I Love. The ABCs of Black History. Thank you for sharing that one. That is so awesome. Other books that I would definitely recommend. So these books are now for adult people, right? So like we've shared a few books for young readers. Here's some books for adult people that I've read. I definitely recommend reading The Invisible Man, all right, by Ralph Ellison. I read this one in college. Just a really, really great book. Nice book about this 1950s, right? So, like, literally, amazing book will open your eyes about the two different worlds that Black people are in. Definitely pick this book up, Invisible Man. Great book. Also recommend reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, right? So this is another great one. Definitely recommend reading this one. We read this one as a family this summer. The Fire Next Time, James Baldwin. Just a great, great book. I love James Baldwin because I consider him just a really great thinker about what does citizenship mean to Black people in the United States, and how can we critically analyze our place in this country while also still having love for the country. So definitely recommend picking up something from James Baldwin, if not The Fire Next Time. Other books. So my sister sent me this one. I still have to jump into this one. It's Nickel Boys, The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead, right? So add this one to your list. There's a couple more we have. Okay, we have 400 Souls. This one is super popular right now. So we're going to jump into this one after Black History Month, 400 Souls by Ibram Kendi and Keisha Blaine. This one is critically acclaimed. Lots of people are reading it right now, and lots of people are saying it's amazing. Shout out to... Yes. Hood Feminism. We started to bite off on this one. Another great one. So, again, yes, shout out to Dr. Markenya. James Baldwin is an absolute genius. Yes, 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 yes. And Grayson, thank you for sharing Woke. Thank you so very much. The other book I want to share is this will be the last one. Well, actually, you know what? This will be the last one. So as we move from Black History Month into Women's History Month, we should begin thinking, and I wrote a piece for Gender Avenger about this. I'll share this later at the end of the episode, but how do we think about Black girlhood, Black womanhood in the 21st century, right? I'm raising 3 young Black women to be empowered civic actors in the future. I definitely think that if you're working as an educator in a school that has Black girls, definitely read Push Out, right? This is, a book about the criminalization of Black girls in schools, right? It's not to say that if someone gets in trouble, there should not be consequences at all, but we do need to think about the ways in which we administer either punishment, or we administer justice, or we administer, how do we help people through making sure that they want to be a part of a community, right? So how do we cultivate community for all kinds of young people, right? And create safe spaces for all young people. So definitely please check out Push Out if you're working in the education space, or if you're raising a young Black woman. All right. So yes, David, thank you for joining us. He says, thank you for these recommendations. I'm so impressed by you and your girls. We appreciate you, David. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And if you're reading anything, right, please share with us anything that you've read by or about Black people that you would love to share with this community. We really would appreciate. And we are always looking to expand our list of resources and tools so that we can expand our minds too. We don't know everything, right, y'all?
Yeah,
We don't. Okay. So I think you guys have heard enough of me talking. So we're going to move into going back to the toolkit, right? So hopefully, you guys are seeing here. So we did the libraries and books part, right? For us, we in the toolkit, and this is going to be a living document. I'm not sure how often we will update this, but it will be updated. But in this toolkit, we also have movies and documentaries, right? So we think that movies and documentaries are what? Why are movies and documentaries great?
Movies and documentaries, at least personally, I love movies and documentaries a lot, like, and they're really dear to my heart because they help me comprehend things in a different way. Like, if you're like, a lot of books I read, like, that get adapted into movies, sometimes the visual like effects of some of the scenes in movies help me like comprehend what's going on a little more.
I love that. I love that.
So like I like documentaries and movies when I'm watching it because like sometimes when they do it like in books like you don't really know what's going on. Something they change it around. But like in movies and documentaries, like it's not that they make it funner, but like when you see it, like they like not overreact about it a little bit, but like expand it more.
Nice. Awesome. What about you?
Something that I think is actually, it's not that I don't like it or do like it, I just think it's really cool that different, okay, so you know how like a book when it's written it's just that, well, when somebody is making a movie of that book they have to interpret it in a in the same way or in their way, but it's most likely in their way because the author didn't make the movie, somebody else did. So I think it's really cool that like different people interpret different scenes differently. Like, say, like, the author in the book said, like, it's a green meadow, and, like, now since you're making the movie, you have to pick where's the meadow and what color green is the grass. Is it raining? Like, so yeah, I think that's
Is
really
it
cool.
cloudy?
Yeah. Awesome. So the artistic license of interpretation. That's awesome. It is so beautiful. So we're going to share. We'd love to know what you guys, and so thank you, Grace, and we're going to show this here. Um, Frederick Joseph recommended reading Hood Feminism during a virtual visit to your class. Yes, super lucky, Grayson. That is so super dope. Thank you for sharing that. So if you, right, viewers, if you guys have watched anything that was super impactful, whether it
Or
is
interesting.
or interesting, whether it was a documentary or a movie by or about Black people and Black culture, please drop it in the chat. Please share with us. And we're going to talk about some of the ones that we watched this month and leading up to this month. All right. So we watched Ma Rainey, of course. All right. We watched that during, I think, Christmas, right? With yeah, so we watched it with my mother-in-law, their grandmother. So shout out to her. But yeah, so what did you guys think about that movie?
I thought that it was really like interesting because it was like a band for like and it was like black people expressing jazz in a different way than other people might, and I really liked that.
Um, what I liked about it was that it kind of showed the struggle during that time period, that if you weren't going to like in the, I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm just going to say like the overarching theme is that um basically if you don't, like, people will expect something of you. If you don't do that thing, they'll probably try to replace you with somebody that's like worse than you. Sorry, this is trying to be spoiler free, so I can't really say anything.
So you're saying that so what she wants to highlight is, how Black music during that time period, Ma Rainey was expressing her autonomy, right, during that time period, even though she didn't really, if you think about the greater um her positioning in the world during that time, she didn't have as much as she was able to express in that moment, right? Yeah. So did you want to share anything about Ma Rainey?
She got it.
Okay, she got it. All right. So, other movies that we watched. So, we talked about this movie in our Blackface episode. We watched Bamboozled, right? Yes, you can go first, right? You can go next. All right. And actually, can you find it actually off of the thing right there? So, yes. Okay. So, Bamboozled is a pretty amazing by Spike Lee. So Garvey, what do you want to share about watching it? Oh, wait, let me do a disclaimer. Bamboozled is not for little kids. Okay. And I would recommend that as you watch, you should have a conversation about it. Maybe even listen to our podcast. So like Bamboozled, just real quick, do you want to give what it's about?
Well, I mean, I think I would spoil it, but I'll just say like basic.
Okay, so Garvey's gonna share.
Wait, could I give? Wait, okay. So basically, what? Well, I don't know. I don't want to like spoil it because like basically, I don't. Since someone else say because I don't want to
Okay,
spoil
so
it.
I'll go. So Bamboozled is essentially a conversation about the use of blackface in entertainment and in popular media. Absolutely, right? We talk about this in our podcast episode that blackface has not gone away. It has just become taboo to talk about the positioning of blackface within American history and within American culture and the tradition of blackface over time, right? So the only bad thing that's happened is people don't talk about it, but blackface still persists. And in this movie, Spike Lee has given us just an amazing narrative about a show producer who has decided to create the most offensive show he could possibly make, and that show was picked up by his network and they took off with it.
And
right?
he was trying to get fired.
He was trying to get fired. And so he leveraged the most offensive thing to him as a Black Harvard graduate. But instead that got turned on its head. And so, we thought this was just a really well done, in our opinion, well done conversation about blackface. Is there anything you want to add about?
Can I add something?
Yeah.
So I wanted to add that I think that it was really good that they did it in a movie, not a book. Because if they did it in a book, a lot of people wouldn't understand. But the visual art that they did, it made it understand more than maybe in a book.
Thank you.
That's sort of like the thing I said. Oh, sorry, Naima. That's sort of like the thing I said before. Like people interpret things differently because, like, I agree. If it was in a book, so many people I think they would take it the wrong way, and like even in the movie, I think that people still could take it the wrong way, even though it's like not supposed to be meant in a way. So yeah.
What I wanted to add was what you said, Mom, about like it getting turned on his head. Also, his feelings toward it got turned on his head. Not to be like spoil it, but like he ends up like actually giving in and like being like, oh yeah, blackface, yeah. Oh, see you at the show next week. And like even though he knew it wasn't okay, he ended up just going with it like for money.
Thank you so much for sharing
Can I
that.
say one more thing?
Mhm.
Sorry.
Yep.
And another thing is, since he did the most offensive thing to him, it wasn't necessarily offensive to his boss. Like it was offensive to his coworkers because they were like, "What? We have to write a script for this?" Well, not his coworker, hers, but his writers. Yeah, the writers, the people who wrote the show. They were like, "We have to write this. Like, isn't this like not allowed anymore?" And like his boss was like, yes, like perfect. So like maybe like I don't know, but he could have done something that was like offensive to everyone, which is hard to think about because something offensive to his boss might not necessarily be offensive to him.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you brought that up, right? And thinking about when we're being culturally competent, we want to make sure that we're sensitive to the fact that some things you might not find offensive, right? But someone else might find offensive. Right. And so, what do we do with that information, right? We want to have a bit of emotional intelligence when we're engaging with other people of different cultures and just being aware of that, right? So, again, not to harp on blackface, right? Because, again, we have a whole podcast episode about that. We recommend you listen to that, even as a family, have discussions about that. One more thing that I do want to say about that is my take on blackface is that it was an entire campaign during post Civil War era, during the Reconstruction period, to brand Black people a certain way so that they continued in their position in the minds and hearts of not only people within the United States, but also globally. So just thinking about like, how do images, how do they interpret how we feel about other people, right? And what role do images play in the quick assumptions that we make about others, right? And so how do we push ourselves instead of not talking about things like blackface, how do we push ourselves to have these challenging discussions so that we can grow as a community, right? Shout out to Reggie Coleman, their grandfather, my dad. He said Bamboozled. I saw that when it first came out. Must have been amazing to go to the theater and see that. Thank you so much for joining us. So I want to share what some of the movies and docus the audience was watching. Dr. Markenya said, I watched the documentary, This Is Our Story, This Is Our Song. It was absolutely phenomenal. So Dr. Markenya, looks like we're going to have to add that one to our list. Grayson says, our family loved watching Hidden Figures this
That
month.
was a great movie.
Awesome.
List actually to
That
talk
was.
about.
Yeah, it is on our list.
It's also a book.
It is also a book. We do have the book. And so he said, Brianna and I learned a lot from 13th, not a kid's movie. Yes, thank you so much. 13th is not a kid's movie as well, but definitely recommend the adults watch that too, right? Other movies, if you have something that you've watched this month or leading up to this month about Black people, please share, right? Definitely not blackface is definitely not just post Reconstruction. Yeah, you're right. You are absolutely right, Dad. Blackface is been before that as well, during slavery as well. So I thank you so much for bringing that to the surface. I want to also say that we also watched Judas and the Black Messiah, right?
Great one.
That was a really great movie. Why don't you talk about that movie?
So I loved how it was much as they were doing. It was like the Black Panther. The Black Panther party, and there was one scene, I'm gonna spoil it a little bit. There's one scene where they just wouldn't give up, and they wouldn't give up the place that they were in.
Yeah. Oh, shout out to Camila. Thank you so much for joining us. She says that her teenagers and her will be watching Judas and the Black Messiah. Yeah, this movie is not for small kids, 17 and up. I definitely have let my kids watch it. Questionable, but y'all know how we roll. But definitely, yeah, it's for research, but definitely a great movie for your teens, a great opportunity to talk about Black liberation movements and the ways in which they are dismantled from the inside, right? I think that is a conversation that we need to have as a country, and a community, also as a Black community. How are Black liberation movements taken apart or dismantled from the inside? Is there anything you want to share about watching Judas and the Black Messiah?
I just wanted to share that honest when I was reading Stamped, it was the first time that I heard of the Black Panther Party, because technically this is not part of the movie, this is actually real. So technically the Black Panther Party was sort of like a Black civilization, not civilization, but community of Black people who were trying to push towards more equality and stuff like that. And watching this movie helped explain it more, because I still was kind of confused. So yeah, again, if you're older, it's really good movie that's really helpful.
Yeah. Anything you want to say?
Yeah, I feel the same as Garvey. I read Stamped, I finished Stamp right before we watched Judas and the Black Messiah, and after reading that, it really the movie really helped me comprehend it more, because sections where they would talk about the Black Panther Party, I couldn't comprehend it as well, because they it also talked about things like recent events. I was alive, or a small child during some of those times, and I could comprehend it better. But having things like that movie was really good.
Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing. I also want to add that we paired, so we didn't just watch Judas and the Black Messiah and then was like, okay, that's it. We paired that movie with the Malcolm X movie, right? That is also done by Spike Lee, right? Denzel Washington. Yep. So we watched Judas and the Black Messiah and then literally
Just
talked about
downstairs.
it for 30 minutes, and then we turned on with we did. We did. And then we watched Malcolm X. And the reason we did that again was to look at what are the different ways in which groups of Black people have worked to
Yeah.
free themselves, right? Rather than waiting on others to free them, how do Black communities form to free themselves, right? How do they do this work? How do they support each other? How do they finance themselves outside of mainstream systems? What are the loopholes that they work through, and how do they create access for each other through community, right? So that movie, I definitely recommend watching Malcolm X. If you want to be like us and pair the two, it is definitely just a great exercise in comparing how do communities of Black people work through the challenges of oppression,
And racism.
lack of resources, racism, and then also the other thing that was beautiful. Just one more thing about this movie as I gush about it, but the acting was amazing.
Oh my
in
god,
all the
phenomenal.
movies.
Like there was this guy who like basically the actor made you feel how you wanted to feel about him.
I
Right.
just want to say a quick little tidbit. Like, first of all, they're both on HBO Max, so there's really no excuse not to watch most of
Unless
these
you
movies.
don't have HBO Max.
Shh. You can look it up on Plan.
But also, like, I remember it was in, I think, Malcolm X. There was one character who you were supposed to hate him, and the actor did like a really good job. I was like, wow, I hate this dude. He's the worst. And then my mom was like, stop. He's just an actor. I'm like, this dude is still the worst.
Yeah, the acting is amazing. So we want to lift up other comments that we're seeing here. So shout out to Libby and Jack. The new Billie Holiday movie came out yesterday. Going to watch tonight. Yes. That's awesome. Hey Kelly, so great to have you here. Liana documentary, so she's watched that. So yes, thank you so much for sharing that. So Reggie Coleman, aka Dad and Grandfather, said PBS has had several very good specials. Definitely check out Eyes on the Prize, right? That's a good one. Yeah, Eyes on the Prize. Also we have the ones about Black churches by Henry Louis Gates. That one came out. That one was amazing, phenomenal docu-series there. So thank you so much for sharing that. One Night in Miami was fantastic. Thank you so much. So he said, I must be old. I saw Malcolm X in the theater. Yes, you are old, young man. Yes. So confirming that the acting was amazing. So, as you guys can see, there's some really amazing stories out there. We've watched so many others. Yeah, Antebellum, Harriet. What else?
Small Axe.
Small Axe, amazing series. I think that's on Amazon Prime. If you're looking for Black stories, not necessarily situated within the United States, but looking for how do Black people once again build community, tell their own narratives, facilitate liberation outside of the context within the United States, definitely check out Small Axe, because that movie talks about just some really amazing stories that have happened in the UK. So we want to lift that one up as well.
And also we watched like we technically listened to watched my
MLK speeches as well,
But
right?
not like
But not I Have a Dream, right? We watched some of the other ones, right? My dad says jazz. So again, like I really want to say, we are huge fans of movies and documentaries, right? As just a great way to facilitate learning, right? And so we want to share, let's see, we will share one more comment. Shout out to you, Dr. Lindsay. What? Thank you so much for joining us. She said, my partner and I watched the first Rainbow Coalition with Clear the Air, and it was a masterclass in organizing for action. With our kids, we've watched a host of films, read many books, including The Great Debaters, which was a great film about Black excellence. Thank you so much, Lindsay. And thank you for your family for joining us this evening. Thank you for sharing that. And also want to shout out to Clear the Air. If you're looking for a community of people and you're an educator or even a parent, right? Or education adjacent, a group of people who are doing a lot of really great restorative work and educating work, right? On anti-racism, on multiculturalism, definitely check out Clear the Air. I definitely recommend checking them out. I really like what they're doing.
Yes.
hold on one second. So we're going to go through really quickly because we are coming up on a lot of time. So we have music and art.
Oh.
Hold on one sec. So we got some art here, right? We also have tons of playlists for y'all, like so
Many, like a bunch.
so many, right? We like almost every era is covered. I do want to shout out to this Shays Baldwin. This is James Baldwin's entire record collection as a Spotify playlist. This one was featured a couple weeks ago, and I just wanted to put that one in there because James Baldwin is so super dope, and that playlist is just really amazing. Obviously, I am, a 90s tween and teen. So that means that 90s music was super pervasive for me. So I love 90s neo soul. So definitely check that out. I think music is just a way to connect with folks and their stories and the way that they feel about life. I think it's absolutely beautiful. If you have any artists that are Black, right, that you love, please drop them in the chat, and also please check out these different Spotify playlists. Some of them are curated by Spotify. Actually, most of them are curated by Spotify. A few of them are curated by us. And so then also, again, just really quickly, we want to say podcasts are another just great way of learning. We dropped in a few episodes. I joined Deval and Kadeen Ellis. They're YouTuber, awesome parents, doing the most millennial couple. And I joined them to talk about what it's like growing up Black, and how Black parents, the challenges that we navigate in raising strong and empowered Black children. So definitely anyone and everyone should check this one out, right? Even if you're not raising Black kids, definitely this new podcast series I want to highlight from NPR, Seizing Freedom. It talks about Reconstruction era. And I think that we don't learn enough or talk enough about the Reconstruction period and what it has done to lay the foundation for the ways in which we treat each other in this country, right? So after the Civil War happened, it was Reconstruction and then Jim Crow era. And, obviously there's a lot of healing that needs to happen that did not happen post Civil War. So, this podcast here, Seizing Freedom, talks about history from a Black person's standpoint or Black people's standpoint, post Reconstruction and during the Reconstruction era. So definitely check that out. Other things, other art stuff, if you love poetry, I just want to share this with everyone. We share the Poetry Foundation. They have tons of poets, Black and all other people as well. But we just linked to, the Black artist that we wanted to feature for this month here. This is Paul Laurence Dunbar's poem. I love this one, We Wear the Mask. This one resonates with me a lot as I navigate the world. I think about the ways in which I show up as a Black woman, and the ways in which I also sometimes suppress or hide myself, right? So that I can feel safe or so that, other people can not feel unsafe around me, which is crazy to think about, right? If you know me, right? It's insane to think about, but I really love this poem, We Wear the Mask. So I definitely recommend checking that out. And then, we have recipes. So I want to scroll down here. We have museums and cultural centers as well. So what I really want to do here is have a conversation just super quickly with each and every one of you guys, because we spent a lot of time talking about resources. But, we have discussion questions in our toolkit. And so hopefully people were able to find those to be helpful. We will rotate these questions in and out, but definitely check these out. These are a great way for you to either start a research project as a family. This is a great way to maybe have a family discussion about important topics that not only impact Black people, but impact, everyone, right? So like for number one, how have Black experiences in the United States influenced and even created changes in the U.S. Constitution that all people benefit from, right? And so we want to ask, if any of you guys have answers to that, please drop your answers in the chat. We would love to hear what you guys think. How have Black experiences in the United States influenced and even created changes in the U.S. Constitution that all people benefit from, right? Before I answer this question, I want to share from Lindsay, she said, just reminded my 12-year-old kiddo that we love Rita Wilson Garcia's book, One Crazy Summer, historical fiction set in Oakland, California in the late 1960s. Thank you so much for sharing that. We're going to add that one to our list as well. Thank you, Lindsay. So does it, any of you guys, do you have any insights in like how have Black experiences helped to influence how we've changed the Constitution, right? Like we have amendments to the Constitution. Has anyone watched Amend, right? On Netflix, right? If you have, like, please share what you think about that. Do you want to answer this first one? Do you have any responses to the first one? Because I can definitely share.
No, I don't have it.
Okay. So, obviously we're looking at like the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment. We're looking at the ways in which, the Civil Rights Movement and the Voting Rights Act, all of which have helped to push the needle on what does the Constitution say and how is the Constitution actually enacted in the lives of each and every citizen or civic actor or person on American soil, right? So, I think that Black experiences when, Black people are fighting for their rights, in many ways, the benefits gained from Black people fighting for their rights inadvertently help every other person living in the United States, right? So, we just want to acknowledge that and lift that up. For the sake of time, we won't stay on this question, but if you have insights that you'd love to share, please drop them in the chat. Um, we'll move to question number 4, right? And we'll have everybody answer this one. But why is it important to celebrate Black History Month? And how can we use that knowledge beyond February? That's the kicker here. What do you got for me?
So I think it's really important to like celebrate Black history because first, like, we need to acknowledge all the things that Black people did and like appreciate that all those Black people that pushed hard and hard to get to like freedom now it's kind of like better for Black people and other people. And I think it's really important to like celebrate after February because if you're just gonna celebrate in the month, you're not actually gonna like learn about Black history.
Thank you for
Can I
that.
go next?
Yeah, please.
So it's actually sort of like the same. The first question, like Black people have helped change a lot of things in our country, just like you said with the voting and let's see, what else? I mean, I can't really think of anything off the top of my head, but like I'm pretty sure if I researched more and I was more prepared, I could give you a lot more like what's it called?
Answers?
Examples.
Yeah.
But like I'm just saying that like also like as the first question said, like Black people have helped change a lot of things, not only in the Constitution, but just in culture, like the foods we eat, the clothes that we wear, the hairstyles that well actually not yeah, the traditions we practice, like religions and like I don't know, like our language, like how we speak and like our hairstyles, like they've changed a lot of things. So that's why we should celebrate because we need to appreciate that and acknowledge that.
Yeah. And the other thing I would ask, you guys or anyone in the audience is, like how can we do that then? What are some ways? Let her go. Let her go first, and then you can go. What are some ways we can? What are some examples of being able to celebrate beyond February?
Um, I would say like cultural appreciate and not cultural appropriate. Like instead of like research. So like instead of wearing braids without having like being Black, maybe you could research why people wear braids and why it's important for people who aren't Black to just I don't know appreciate the hairstyle or like read Black books or just I don't know watch Black movies and documentaries and learn about Black historical figures that not a lot of people know about like Ida B. Wells or who else is like not that known?
Dorothy Height, even though
James
she's known
Cole.
by us. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
like those, like just people who aren't that known. Like as I always give examples because it's the only examples that people always talk about, like Harriet Tubman and Martin Luther
Malcolm
King
X.
Jr. and Malcolm X. Like they're very important. They've pushed like a lot of like, but like, we have to like talk about more people who've helped as well.
I love that. Thank you so very much. I also want to recommend, when you select your curriculum, right? The books that we read, the people that we elevate, right? The stories that and narratives that we share. It's just really important for us to think about, how who's missing, whose stories are missing, right? What don't we know, right? Even when we're doing things like working with the environment, how is the environment impacting
And
environment,
changing
right, and changing
the way that we look at things.
the way that we look at things, or the way it's impacting Black people, right? Think about Hurricane Katrina, and like, who did that impact, right? Like, who did you see on the news and see on the television, right?
Like the news
That
people.
needed help, right? So, okay, so thank you, Reggie Coleman, for sharing. House purchasing and renting has changed. I can remember when there were areas where you couldn't buy a house, you'd be steered to certain areas, and I just want to say that that has not changed. I don't know if anyone has seen the story where a couple was selling their house, and then they got one price, and then they got their white friend to stand in place and sell the house, and it like quadrupled or quadrupled or whatever. And that was just insane. So, we still have to think about the ways in which we value, the contributions of Black people, whether it's the homes that they own or the stories that they tell. So thank you so much for lifting that up. Lindsay says, yes, Black history is American history. Love that. Love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Kelly said, begins January and is taught through the year every day, weaved into our curriculum. Thank you so much, Kelly. Shout out to you for sharing that. David says, hide the broccoli in the potatoes, and questions about Black lives to existing assignments. I love that so much. I love that. To keep reinforcing contributions of people of color. So thank you so very, very much. So it requires us to be consciously aware of the decisions that we're making to include or not include
Other
people's
people.
voices. Yep, that's right. That's right. So
Yeah.
thank you so much. Is there anything you want to add before I move to the next question?
I want to add that one more like I want to add that like Garvey said, we shouldn't
Cultural appropriate.
like we should appreciate people all around the year, because and a way to appreciate is maybe not maybe go to a Black restaurant or look at recipes that you can try.
I love that. So this kind of also then will lead into number 5. So we'll just go right here, and I'm gonna ask you, selves, who are historical Black figures that inspire you and why? And then audience, please share with us some historical Black figures that you find to be super inspirational and why. Sophia had this assignment in school, and so shout out to her teacher for sharing that assignment with the students. So would you share who you've selected?
So I selected Malcolm X because I think he's a really powerful speaker, and when he spoke out to not just Black people, he spoke out to a lot of other people.
And he actually had to evolve to that place, right? So a lot of people write off Malcolm X because of his earlier, very exclusionary way of talking about, Black liberation, right? In fact, the way he talked about, just white people not being like great at all, right? And so Malcolm X actually had to evolve. And I think that that's really important for us to understand, that as we learn about other people, right? We need to be able to have the space, and even like people say, the grace to be able to evolve our thinking, right? And grow, right? To be able to push ourselves and grow. So I thank you for bringing him in. Shout out to Lorna. Thank you for joining us. They need to teach more about Black people in school. Lorna, yes, you are absolutely correct. And we got to
True.
keep pushing for that. My dad says my daughter. So thank you so much. Not historical yet, but maybe one day. Thank you so much, Dad. If you guys have a historical figure that you love, please share. So we will stop with questions here because we don't have a ton of time, but we do want to say that, please check out these questions in our toolkit. They are here for you to have a fruitful conversation. If you ever are like, oh, I don't know where I'm going with this, or I need a little assistance, please, please, please reach out to us. We are more than happy to help. Kelly, thank you so much. Harriet Tubman, her strength and commitment to change is so inspiring. Yes, shout out to Harriet Tubman. We love her. Yeah, Buki said Katherine Johnson. Yes, she is the mathematician, original woman in tech, and subject focused of Hidden Figures. So shout out to Auntie Books, who is also a phenomenal woman in tech, making waves and doing things. Check out Share Mobilize now, all right? And make sure that you join them either on Clubhouse or on Twitter. Share Mobilize now. Check them out. She's doing a lot with that group. Super, super amazing. Thank you, Dr. Markenya, for sharing Shirley Chisholm. Yes, she paved the way for Black women in Congress. Yes, she's one of our favorites. Grayson says Jackie Robinson, not only for courage to play baseball, but for helping raise money to pay bonds and bail. Yes, love that. Thank you so much. And, I just want to shout out and say, like, a lot of athletes are at the forefront of civil rights movements, right? And liberation movements, right? So when we think about it, like, we have people like Jackie Robinson, we have people like Muhammad Ali, right? We have people like, even like, you want to think now, like LeBron James and the whole all the WNBA players who were at the front of Black Lives Matter movements this summer, right?
Also,
think about, obviously Colin Kaepernick comes to everyone's mind as well, taking a knee during the anthem.
Also,
we have all, like,
James Baldwin.
Well, James Baldwin wasn't. He
We're
was a
talking
thinker. We're
about
talking about athletes,
athletes.
right? With
Oh.
Tommy Smith,
Okay.
right, who put his fist up at the Olympics, right? So, like, think about the ways, and then obviously I'm naming all the dudes, but there are so many women athletes as well, who have also paved the way for liberation and used their platform for that. So, thank you for lifting that up. Grace Hopper, thank you, David. The most dangerous phrase in the English language. We've always done it this way. Love that, love that, love that. Yes, Claudette Colvin. Yes, right. So she definitely did not give up her seat first before Rosa Parks, right? So yes, Lindsay saying before Rosa Parks there was Claudette Colvin, and why don't we teach about her? And there was a piece circulating, I think, a couple weeks ago about her and finally getting her due. And I think that it's really amazing that people are now learning about her contributions to the bus boycott and the civil rights movement. Finally. Absolutely, absolutely amazing that this is happening now. So we just want to thank you guys for sharing, people who have inspired you. We really, really appreciate it. One more person I want to share that inspires me is Audre Lorde, right? So, she is a Black feminist, queer thinker. One of my favorite, she does a lot. She has Sister Outsider is a book that's super popular by her. But The Master's Tools Will Never Dismantle the Master's House is a speech that she gave to I think it was a women's symposium. And she just talked about, like, why aren't we being intentional about bringing Black and other non-Black women's voices into this feminist space? So, I just want to lift Audre Lorde up. I love, a lot of what she writes. We have more shares. Yes. So thank you, Libby and Jack, John Lewis, Coretta Scott King, Christopher King. Thank you so much. Not Christopher King. Yes. Coretta Scott King. Thank you so much. Althea Gibson. Thank you so much for sharing. So, like,
Gibson.
Well, Reginald Coleman, you got to share.
ask.
Who is Althea Gibson? You can't just throw up a name.
Sophia, you're supposed to research.
You're
this
supposed
later.
to research.
They're giving names so you
Right.
can
This
research
is
later.
free research for
Yeah,
you.
you should be.
Yes. So, yes, that's
As you
right.
should.
So what I want to say, as we're coming up on our hour, right? First and foremost is just to remember that, Black people have made lots of contributions in so many ways, as you all know, right? And it's not just history. We want to think about the arts, not just arts and entertainment either. We want to think about, and not just music. We want to think about, we're in science, we're in math. I challenge everyone to think about, think about reading and finding out more about the Black libraries that existed, right, in ancient Egypt and in the Middle East, right? How did those philosophers and thinkers contribute to the mathematics and the engineering that we're doing in using these same concepts to this day, right? Your grandfather said Althea Gibson is the first Black woman who won the U.S. Open. So before Serena and Venus, there was Althea Gibson. Yeah. Thank you
The
so
mo
much,
you
Dad,
know.
for sharing that. Yeah.
Thank
Shout
you.
out to that. So just, as you guys go through, think about how we can weave all of these narratives in. Um, I also want to say that before you all go, please, please, please check out. We have a Black History Month Time to Level Up. So it's kind of a map to help you check on what are you doing after February, right? So how are you taking in Black history, Black culture into your life after February is over? So we have exposure. So hopefully Black History Month serves as a platform, a jumping point for you to expose yourself to new and innovative ideas and thoughts that you might not have had. Some engagement, right? So thinking about, how are participating in acts that push back against the negative stereotypes and tropes placed on Black people and Black culture. Understanding and realizing that, systematic barriers that have and still prevent Black people from full access, while realizing the long history of joy, beauty, and innovation that developed in response to these challenges. So we don't want to look at just the pain. We want to make sure that we're also looking at the beauty, right, that has come from the struggle.
The beauty.
Alignment. So, eventually you want to move to align yourself and see the Black struggle for liberation as tied to your own understanding of justice and how your own justice is not realized in the United States in some ways, right? In some ways it is, right? And then finally, making an impact, engaging in acts that actively move to assist in the liberation of Black people everywhere. And so you can find this resource down at the bottom of the toolkit and download the file here. It's not that cute. I know, right? I'm working on it, right? I'm not a web developer, right? I'll get there one day. But this resource is located at the bottom of the toolkit. So please definitely download that resource and check it out. Lindsay is saying teachable moments with the Let's K-12 Better family. What? Thank you so much. You really are the mom of all capes. I appreciate that, modeling how we can all be better, more intentional parents. Thank you so much, Lindsay. I really, really appreciate your kind words. It is being in community with folks like y'all that makes these experiences worthwhile, right? This is all like love, a labor of love. We're doing this because it's fun.
Yeah,
For the
it's
most
like,
part. Some of us
yeah.
are having more fun than others, right? But it's fun,
I guess so.
It's
And the other thing we really want to highlight before we let you guys go is that Garvey will be joining. Yes, collective action. Yes, Brianna. Yes, collective action. We want you guys to mark your calendar, right? Because Garvey is going to be joining Peace One Day in partnership with the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights for a day of fighting against racism and racial discrimination. So please mark your calendars, March 21st. We're going to show this commercial that she did really quickly. Yes, congratulations, Garvey.
Thank
Be proud of
you.
yourself. What? We are all proud of you. So definitely we're gonna have you guys check this out.
I'm a student, podcaster, and gamer. Peace One Day, in association with the Office of United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, are producing the Anti-Racism Live Global Digital Experience on March 21st. Watch the broadcast on March 21st at peaceoneday.org. I'm participating to help raise awareness for Anti-Racism Day. Bring your family, friends, colleagues, and community. By working together, we can #fight racism.
All right, so yay to that. We're super proud of Garvey. We're really, really excited for Peace One Day. Like, hopefully she'll be smiling during this event. And, just want to also say that Women's Thank you guys so much for the celebrations and the shout outs in the chat. We really, really, really appreciate y'all's support. And hopefully you guys can join us on the 21st of March. So 3, 2, 1, let's stop racism. What?
A
A.
racism.
What?
A anti-racism.
Okay.
Hey.
So
Oh, that didn't rhyme at all.
that did it. But what I do want to say is that next month is Women's History Month. We want to just say that during Women's History Month, let it be intersectional. So think about not only Black women, but other women of color, white women, disabled women, right?
Indigenous
Right?
women.
Everyone, right? So
As you
during
should.
Women's History Month, we want to make sure that your celebration of Women's History Month is intersectional. I wrote this piece for Gender Avenger, just talking about, and I dedicate it to all the Black women who are out there and all of the non-binary Black women or Black people who are out there who are, waiting for rights and waiting for all kinds of other things to be realized. So definitely check this piece out. We shared it out, but we will share it out again. Definitely check that out. Please let your Women's History Month celebrations again be intersectional, y'all. Like, think about the intersections of all of our identities and how that meets the identity of womanhood, right? All right. We love and appreciate each
All of
and every one of you guys. What do we
you.
want to say?
Thank you. As you
Have a
should.
good
Thanks.
Saturday.
Thank you.
Over.
Thank you for joining us for our second live show of 2021. Please, if you're not already following us on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, please do that.
As you
Please
should.
like and subscribe to our podcast. Next month, we're dropping Intersectional Tech to open up Women's History Month
Oh,
with
yeah.
Dr. Kashana Gray. That and Naima. Naima led that interview.
Yeet.
Yes, it's going to be super lit. So we can't wait. So please get ready for that one in next week, right? Get ready for that episode next week. Thank you guys so very much. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. We are so thankful that you guys joined us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And
Thank you.
have a great one.
As you should. As you should.
Thanks, y'all.